What's up, everybody? Welcome to Sports Magazine Collector. I'm Brad, and today we're going to do a guest interview with Jim Kehoe, also known as CGC Sports Illustrated. Check it out. All right, everybody. So today I am launching a new video series where I will bring on a guest and do sort of an interview or discussion about the sports magazine hobby and other related topics. So I'm really excited to introduce my very first ever guest on this channel, Jim Kehoe. Hope did I say your name right, Jim?
Nailed it, man.
Okay.
First try, nailed it.
Okay, perfect. Better known as CGC Sports Illustrated. So welcome, Jim, and thank you so much for hopping on here with me.
Hey, Bradley, thanks for having me. And by the way, your channel is awesome. I love what you're doing, man. Love it.
I appreciate that. I do. So Jim is basically like the OG of the graded Sports Illustrated hobby, as far as I'm concerned. His channel, CGC Sports Illustrated, it's been around a couple of years, and it's really a huge reason that I got into this hobby in the first place. I was more of a sports cards guy. I was vaguely aware that you could grade sports magazines. And so one day I was actually just kind of looking up a little bit more about it. And I went to YouTube because there's a lot of sports card YouTube channels I would follow. And I just searched Sports Illustrated CGC to see if there were any informative accounts, and Jim's channel popped up. And I watched every single episode. So, Jim, I want to thank you for all the awareness and education you brought to the hobby. And if you're ready to go, then I'll just go ahead and jump in with some questions.
Yeah, please do. And like I said, thanks for the intro. And yeah, this is supposed to be fun. And so that's what I try and do, and I try and help other people come into the hobby. And so that's a great story that you kind of stumbled across my stuff, and you and I have talked a number of times. And I'll do a little cross promotion plug. You've been on my collectors roundtables that we've had, and I think you're gonna be on the next one too, and we're gonna have that'll be out on my channel here probably another week or so. So look for that.
Yes, absolutely. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
All right. So, Jim, just share with me how you first got into the hobby of collecting Sports Illustrateds.
Yeah, so I was like a lot of people. I was a sports card guy as a kid, not so much as an adult, but as a kid, so two things. I collected sports cards. Me and my dad. It was a fun little bonding thing for us. But then I had a subscription to Sports Illustrated too, and so I was just kind of, and I collected other things too. Starting lineups. You may be a little too young for those, Bradley, but starting lineups with little action figures that had a sports card in them. I collected those and some other little sports stuff. And I always had a subscription to Sports Illustrated as a kid, and I fortunately I kind of inherently knew that these Sports Illustrated magazines, might one day be collectible. And so I grew up outside of Chicago, so I'm a big, Cubs, Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks fan. And whenever Michael Jordan was on a Sports Illustrated cover, and I was with my mom at the grocery store, I'd pick one or two copies up off the newsstand. So again, fortunate that I kind of inherently knew at the time that those big ugly mailing labels on subscription issues were not good. And so I would just do this, and I would just grab them and I'd collect them and I'd stuff them in a box, and nothing ever happened to them. And then, I became an adult, and I've stopped collecting sports cards. And when I became an adult, got married, bought my first house, my parents gave me all these boxes of stuff that, from when I was a kid. They're like, all right, you got a house now. You do whatever you want with this stuff. And so I really didn't even think about them that much. So there's this huge gap from when I was collecting Sports Illustrated as a kid. And then, like a 30-year gap to where in 2019, I was getting ready to move. And I had lived in this house a long time. My family and I collected, junk that we all collect. And so I was cleaning out a basement, and I was, random stuff, all sorts of stuff. And I was selling stuff on Facebook Marketplace and eBay, and just because I didn't want to move this stuff. And I came across these boxes my parents had given me years ago. And I'm going through it, and there's all these Sports Illustrateds in there. And I'm like, these are awesome. These are so cool. And like everything else I was selling, I was like, all right, let's go, see what these things are worth on eBay. And that was literally the first time that I looked them up on eBay and I saw graded copies. I was like, and I mean, it was pretty instant. I was very intrigued, very interested. This was, the hobby is still pretty small today. It's a lot bigger than what it was when I, started digging in 2019. It was tiny back then, and there were just a handful of slabs on eBay. and I just kind of jumped in with both feet and started learning everything I could about it, and sent my first 5 issues to CGC and got them back, and I was off to the races after that. And so that's kind of my collecting history, and how I got hooked on these.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I was pretty similar. Had a subscription to Sports Illustrated all growing up, and I saved all my copies. And it wasn't ever so much as I thought they were going to be valuable, but it was just like, man, these are awesome. These are cool. Like, I think that I'm going to want to look back at these down the road just for the sports history and the nostalgia and everything. I wish I would have had the foresight you did to get some newsstand copies, because everything that I saved was all my subscription issues. But yeah, it was kind of that same thing. I've got my huge stack, and one day I just started kind of looking up, searching what they were worth, and it just kind of led me down the rabbit hole, which ultimately I found your channel. So, what is it in your opinion that really appeals with these graded sports magazines? What is it that makes it unique, or that makes it cool?
I think, a couple of things. Let's start with nostalgia. So there's obviously not only the nostalgia that we have for our athletes that we loved, and again, for me, it was Jordan. I was 10 years old growing up outside of Chicago when Michael Jordan was drafted in 1984. So I was bound to be, one of the biggest Jordan fans on the planet, and I was. And so I think the nostalgia for these athletes, obviously, that goes along with sports collecting and any sort of sports memorabilia collecting. But for me, it was also the nostalgia over the magazine. I mean, you got to think back in the 80s and 90s. This is before the internet. This is before, not everybody had ESPN and that sort of thing. I mean, this is how we got our information about the sports stars that we loved. We waited for that Sports Illustrated to show up in the mailbox once a week, and it was everything. It was awesome. It's how we got our information and got our content. It seems like it's the dark ages, compared to where we are now. But I have a lot of nostalgia for Sports Illustrated as a brand and as an entity. So for me, I think I'm not alone with that. I think a lot of other people did that too. And I've told the story before, and other people have said, I did the same thing. But I used to rip the covers off of the magazine, once I was done reading it, and I would stick them to the wall in my room as, a 13-year-old, just hodgepodge, got all these covers in no particular order. So I would see these covers every single day. I'd walk in and out of my bedroom, and there would be, the Michael Jordan Raging Bull cover sitting right there from 1989. And all of these covers just kind of became ingrained in my brain. So I think that there's obviously the nostalgia over the athlete, but there's the nostalgia over the actual publication itself. And beyond that, Sports Illustrated was not only a great brand name and had great content on the inside as well, but they were really known for their photography. There were tons of other sports publications, whether it was Sport Magazine or Sporting News or whatever the heck else was out there. But Sports Illustrated was constantly winning awards for their photography. And I think that's a big part of it too, because it is those amazing images and those pictures that they captured of these sports superstars. And I've said this before, and I really believe it. Many of them are a work of art. I mean, photography is certainly a well-respected art form, and to have it like that, I think that part of it is a big part of it too. And we touched upon this earlier briefly. I think they did such a great job of capturing specific moments in time. The 715 Hank Aaron from 1974. I mean, that's just an amazing cover and photograph, and captures that moment in time of Hank Aaron breaking that record. I talk about that Evel Knievel issue because it's one of my favorites. I just that Evel Knievel issue from 1974 screams the 70s. On one of my recent videos, I talked about the LeBron James, I think it's 2006, 2009, the Cleveland Rocks issue, where it's that shot of LeBron from the back and he's doing the powder and the crowd is all behind. That's a freaking work of art to me in every aspect of it. And it just does such a great job of capturing that moment in time. And that leads on to, another thing. They display so well. Some sports collectible, sports cards, okay, they display okay. Game tickets, I think graded game tickets are cool. a lot of times it's this little torn stub and this little slab. That's okay. And I think that you really see that more in the comic book side. And I've said this all the time, this is really the perfect merge of comic books and sports cards. But, I follow a ton of comic book guys on Instagram. Their displays are just amazing of what they can do with these things because it's a bigger physical item and it just looks great displayed in a way that so many other sports collectibles like sports cards and game tickets just can't ever compete with. So I think it's a combination of all of those things that just makes the hobby so interesting to everybody.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think you're right when you say that a lot of other people feel the same way. I mean, Sports Illustrated.
Brett, I'm going to interrupt you, Brett. Look behind you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to stop talking so that it shows your camera there. Say something.
Yeah, no, talking about my Sports Illustrated issues back here. Yeah, no,
they look amazing. I mean, before we started recording, when we jumped on, I asked you about one of the Sports Illustrated back there because I got so excited when I saw it.
Yeah.
I think that's the perfect example of that. They display so well. It's funny. I was talking to a collector just earlier today, and he brand new, like just discovered this hobby like a week ago. Reached out to me and we were talking, and he's like, yeah, my girlfriend's into this too. And, I think I can get away with setting some of these up and displaying them around the house. That's, part of us. Hey, you don't have a home office or a man cave and you want to put some of these up. You're negotiating with your significant other on the decor. There are ways you can get away with it with these because they are so aesthetically pleasing that a lot of other collectibles aren't.
Yeah, no, I agree. They display really well, much better than sports cards. And, like you said, the Sports Illustrated brand, I think it just resonates with so many people because like you and like me, they collected as kids and it just kind of, the way that it highlights our favorite athletes of all time. I mean, up there, I've got a Kobe Bryant issue. Kobe Bryant, my all-time favorite athlete. I mean, just like Jordan was for you, that's what Kobe was for me growing up. And I think it's freaking awesome to display, a beautiful Sports Illustrated cover, not to mention the fact that in newsstand, there's some rarity to it as well. I get to say that Kobe in particular, it's the highest graded copy in the world. I get to say I have the highest graded copy of that issue. I mean, I think that's pretty cool.
You know what, Brad, I think that's a really good point too, is, we collect things because they're rare. People collected Beanie Babies in the 80s and then they realized, okay, there's millions of these things, and that kind of died off pretty quickly. You really only collect things for the most part if they're rare. If they're everywhere, well, then big deal. I think that's a great point because I know that Kobe Bryant issue over your shoulder specifically, and that is an ultra rare issue. It's a 1 of 6 variant that was produced that week. They produced 6 different covers. The Kobe issue was probably only distributed in Southern California or maybe a little bit farther out than that. So they produced a fraction of the normal run rate that they would have if there was just one cover that week. And the fact that you've got it in a 9.2, I think you said, means I don't know if anybody will ever get another copy of that graded higher than that. I mean, it's special when we can have something of our favorite athlete where we can say, hey, there's only one of these.
Yeah, I think that part of it makes it really fun. And, with sports cards, like I said, I'm still a big sports card guy. I mean, the last 25 years, since I was a little kid, I loved to collect sports cards. I've definitely moved away from it a lot recently just because I'm focused more on this, but I still enjoy them. But, to me, some of the things that they're doing now with the serial numbers and the short prints and the variations, I like to kind of term that as manufactured rarity. I mean, sure, if I get a Kobe Bryant card that's serial numbered out of 10, I mean, yeah, that's rare. There's only 10 of them, but it was designed that way. As opposed to these newsstands, these are rare because just not a lot of people saved them. Or even more rare, if they're in really good condition, and if they're a high grade, the grade also generates more rarity. So to me, that's a big differentiator where I've kind of started to, like I said, drift towards the sports magazines. And the fact that also, like you mentioned, that they're a snapshot in time. The sports cards aren't that as much. Some of them can be. I mean, heck, the Michael Jordan rookie card, that flick. I mean, that to me is kind of a snapshot in time. But for the most part, they're just, it's not like a Sports Illustrated where you've got a date stamped on there. It is an exact moment in history. There was a reason that they were on the cover. Okay, I mean, people didn't just get on Sports Illustrated cover for anything. That's a big deal. And so there was some historic reason or event that got them on the cover, and I just love all of that history that goes with that. I'm such a sports nerd and sports geek when it comes to history, and so that's a big part of the appeal for me too. So we kind of have touched on this here a little bit already, but if you have anything else to add, just talk to me about how you think the graded sports magazines fit in with some of these other popular collectibles like sports cards and comics and anything else.
Yeah, you know what? I obviously, since the pandemic, all sorts of collecting of everything has just exploded and gone through the roof. Um, so people collected Sports Illustrated just casually forever. There is a fairly large contingent of people that are autograph seekers and specifically use Sports Illustrated as the autograph medium. So those guys have been around for a long time, and they've been a great resource for me when it comes to kind of cataloging all of the Sports Illustrateds that are out there. So I think it fits in with this current state that we're in right now, where collecting is of all sorts of things is at an all-time high. I think the key part of it for me was when CGC decided to start grading them. I think whenever anything starts to be graded, it gives us a unified metric that we can go on to say, okay, here's the condition of this. It's been certified. It's authentic. It hasn't been tampered with by this third-party grading company. And it just kind of brings a sense of uniformity and confidence from the collector into that. And you've seen this with graded VHS and graded DVD and graded video games and comic books and sports cards and all of that thing. I mean, you've got to get to that level to create that kind of base level of trust within the hobby that, okay, this is real and this is what the number on this one is. So I think that was a huge step for Sports Illustrated, was when CGC decided that they were going to start grading them. So I think it fits in. It fits in an interesting way. I keep going back to the fact that it's really such a great combination of comic books and sports cards. Comic books, obviously, because the physical item is similar to a comic book. They display so well. CGC is a comic book grading company, so the grading rules and norms and procedures follow that. But then when it comes to sports cards, the collectability of who's on the cover is really driven on the sports card side. Obviously, Mickey Mantle is hugely collectible. And that's driven by sports cards. Michael Jordan and LeBron, all hugely collectible. That's all driven by sports cards. Kobe, all that sort of stuff. So it kind of sits in this very interesting place that's kind of in between there and growing and kind of carving out its own niche, pulling from both of those sides.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing that I think is really exciting about it is you look at how popular sports cards are, and they've been around for collecting sports cards has been around for much longer than collecting sports magazines.
For sure.
But then you also look at how popular comics are, and I mean, those are two really massive hobbies with really big followings. And I'm in a complete agreement that the graded Sports Illustrated it really is a combination of those two. And so when you look at how popular those two hobbies are, and then you also look at the things that you and I discussed earlier on why collecting Sports Illustrated is pretty cool, that is just really exciting to me, because I truly feel that it's just going to continue to grow in popularity. As I've gotten more educated about it and more into it, everyone that I've shared it with, I don't think I've heard a single person, hear about grading Sports Illustrateds and think, oh, that's not cool. Like every single person's like, oh, that's awesome. Like I love Sports Illustrated. Like, and then when you even go further and explain the difference between the subscription and the newsstand, and explain, yeah, well, this is why there's actually a little bit of rarity to it. It's like it clicks with everybody. It just makes a lot of sense. And it's just really cool. So
yeah, I think that's a really good point because we've got these two, think like fan bases. We got the comic fan base and we got the sports card fan base, and there's something in it for each of those. And so we've got this existing huge pool of collectors to be able to pull from into this new thing here. So it really has been. I don't want to say it's been easy for the hobby to grow, but in some ways we're really not introducing anything new. We're introducing something that's just a little bit of a different take on something they're already really familiar with.
yeah, it's kind of natural. It's just like a
Yeah,
natural transition.
that's a great point. It really is kind of a natural progression for comic book and sports card people who are just kind of looking for something new.
Yeah. All right. So you've been doing this a lot longer than I have. I want you to share with us a story from your time in the hobby. And it could be absolutely anything. I mean, maybe like a chase of a specific issue that you've had, or maybe an interesting interaction with a buyer or a seller, or maybe like a great find that you stumbled upon. Just give us something, give us a little story to share.
Yeah, you know what? I think I've got several, and I'll keep them brief so we can get them all in here to share. But probably so one of the probably most collectible issues I have, and I'm going to show some in a minute, and it's not there because I've actually got it in a frame displayed, and I didn't want to take it out. But I have the 1980 U.S. men's hockey team Miracle on Ice issue, and I've got it graded at 9.8. It's the only 9.8 in the world. There's none graded higher, and
That's amazing.
the story, yeah, I mean, I mean, I knew it had a shot at 9.8, but to actually get that and see that from really an iconic piece of history like that was really shocking. And the story behind it is a little underwhelming and surprising. So I buy, not uncommon for me to buy collections, whole collections from people that just kind of want to get rid of them. And I was working with this guy to buy this collection, and it was all new. I mean, most of his stuff were subscriptions, but I was just buying the newsstands. And what I was really interested in is he had a Jordan 1984 Michael Jordan A Star Is Born, which is his third cover, but his first pro cover, and that's the one I really wanted out of the collection. And he was sending me pictures and gave me lists, and there was a couple of other Jordans. I think there was a Gretzky first cover from 1981 in there. Those were the ones I really wanted. Because I had the U.S. men's hockey team one before, not in great grade, but decent grade and that sort of stuff. And so I ended up, making the deal, and I ended up getting the collection. I ended up going through it all. And it turned out the Jordan A Star Is Born wasn't in that great a shape. I think I ended up getting that graded at a 6.0, and the Gretzky wasn't great. It was like a 6.5 or 7. And as I'm going through the pile of things, I come across that U.S. men's hockey issue, and it just, I mean, I just couldn't find a flaw with it. I was going through it everywhere I could, looking at the spine, looking at all the corners, making sure the the centerfold wasn't detached for the staples and all that sort of stuff. And so what is probably the best piece in my entire collection was kind of an accident and an afterthought that I stumbled into until I realized how good it is. So that's kind of a good find for me. Most of my best stories are mistakes. And most of them are around issues that I was an idiot and sold and should have never sold. For example, the Hulk Hogan cover from 1985, which is a great cover. I had that at 9.2, still the highest graded copy in the world. I sold it. I'm not even going to tell you what I sold it for because it makes me want to throw up, but I sold it about 2 years ago for, let's just say it was a lot less than $1,000. And that issue's probably a $5,000 or more issue today. I had Peyton Manning's first cover from 1996 in 9.8.
I've heard you'd share that one. That's heartbreaking.
I sold that one a couple of years ago, and I'd pay 10 times what I sold it for to get it back today. I had Bo Jackson's second cover, but it's his first pro cover in his minor league baseball uniform with the Chicks, which was his team, written on it. I had that at 9.4, and I sold it. Still the highest graded copy today. I had Patrick Ewing's first cover at 9.4, still the highest graded copy today. I sold that one. So unfortunately, most of my stories are issues that I sold too early. I'll tell. So others are ones, issues that I could have bought and passed on that I'm kicking myself. So I could have. I know the 9.8 Ronaldo first cover was on eBay, for $1,000. And for some reason, I just kind of didn't pull the trigger on it. And I think that's an amazing issue today. I had a chance to buy the Evel Knievel at the highest graded, which is still the highest graded at 9.2, and I passed on that. So so most of the fun stories are ones where I was an idiot and either sold something that I shouldn't have sold, or missed a great buy at the time when I should have snagged it. So
Well, you're not going to be in this as long as you have and not have some misses. And also some of those amazing issues that you hadn't sold. Most of us will never even have any that good. So at least you can say you had it at one point.
yeah, that is good. And I still got photographs of them. And so the reasons, because people will say a lot of times like, hey, what the hell were you doing? Selling that thing. So I kind of started in all of this. Again, big Michael Jordan fan. Michael Jordan's been on the Sports Illustrated cover 50 times, more than anybody else by a lot. I just wanted to collect all 50 Michael Jordans. And for a long time, that's really what I was solely focused on. And so I would get stuff graded, and I'd love it. And it was cool. And I was like, yeah, but I need the $1,000 that I'm going to sell this get for this, Bo Jackson second cover. I need that to buy this Michael Jordan slab that I'm missing. So I was kind of really, really laser focused on getting all 50 of those Jordan covers for a long time. And now that I've got that, I'm hanging on to stuff a little bit more because I don't need those funds to be able to kind of reach that goal because I've already gotten it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know you've now successfully completed that run of 50 Jordans, and that's kind of a cool little thing to talk about that I don't think we've talked about much before. Is that's really popular in sports cards, is like collecting an entire set, and I think that's kind of a cool idea that could grow in popularity with Sports Illustrated. Is collecting an entire run of a specific athlete and all of the covers that they've been on. I mean, and Jordan, that's the hardest one to do, obviously, with him being on 50. So that's pretty amazing. I would be willing to guess you're the only person in the world with that. But no, I mean, isn't there a set registry out there? Doesn't CGC do set registries?
There is, and I think you're right. I think there's a good opportunity for growth in this hobby with the set registry. A couple of things. I'm not very familiar with it. There's a guy that you and I both know who knows the set registry within CGC really well, and I need to spend some time with him and get it up and going. It is a clunky user interface, which unfortunately most of CGC's stuff is, the user interface is really kind of clunky and not very user friendly. But yes, CGC does have a set registry. You can create sets and build out sets and have them accessible by anybody who has access to CGC's database of information and the registry information. And it's something that's been on my list of things to spend more time doing, and I really need to do it. And I definitely think it's a growth area for the hobby, because it really the PSA set registry really did a lot to fuel the growth of graded sports cards back in the day, and still really does.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so this may be my favorite part of what we've have planned. I always love to see your unboxing videos. I love to just see any slabs and issues that other people have. That's just always really interesting to me. So I would like you to share with us however many you want. Show us some of your favorite slabs.
Okay, I got several. So I'm going to preface this by saying I'm a Chicago sports guy, so this is almost all of these are Chicago guys. But number two, these are all pop one of ones, none higher, and they're not necessarily the most valuable or the most collectible. I grabbed ones that I that I thought were unique, again being the highest graded copy in the world, but also kind of interesting and maybe a little different, and maybe stuff you don't see all the time. So let's start off with this one. This one is very cool. This was that's what I thought. Yeah, 95. So this is Michael Jordan's first Slam magazine cover. Came out in 1995. It was issue number 6. I think that's very cool. I've talked a lot about this, especially recently in some of my unboxing videos. Getting a Slam magazine in a high grade is almost impossible. It was just every issue is very condition sensitive. They were just very cheaply produced. And I get it. Slam magazine wasn't producing it as a collectible. They were producing it as a magazine. But this one is very cool. This is a 9.8. I've had this for a couple of years, probably. I did not get this graded myself. I bought this slab. and it's the only 9.8. And my God, almost impossible to find another 9.8. So much dark ink, and in the back, look at that. I mean, that's just screaming for color flaws all over that black cover. So
I love that. I think slams are underrated. They're, I think it's Panini maybe has released slam sports cards within the past few years that are just sports cards of different slam covers, and those have blown up. Those are super popular, and just with how popular the NBA has become, I think those slam magazines, especially of guys like Jordan and Kobe, I think those are really underrated.
absolutely, and I agree. And I think for guys that are a little bit younger than me, especially NBA guys, slam is to them what Sports Illustrated was to me when I was 15 years old. And so I agree. I think slams are very interesting. They're really hard to pop a high grade on, but they're a lot of fun. Next one up, continuing my theme of Chicago guys. This is Dennis Rodman's first cover from 1995 at 9.0. Again, back to what I've talked. I mean, Rodman was freaking out of his mind back then. He was dating Carmen Electra and Madonna and winning championships with the Bulls, and he had crazy hair, and he was hanging out with Pearl Jam. He was the freaking coolest guy in the world. And I think this image captures that. I mean, he's wearing a bustier or something. He's got a dog collar around his neck. His hair's red, and he's got this big parrot on his arm. I was a big Rodman fan. I actually lived in Detroit when he was playing with the Pistons and won those back-to-back championships there in the late 80s. So I was familiar with Rodman both as a minor Detroit fan, but a big Chicago fan, obviously. And so this one at 9.0. I don't know why this is hard to get in a high grade. There's only a handful of these graded. Rodman is a big superstar, really collectible. It's a beautiful looking cover. 9.0 is the best out there, and it's right here. And I just I love that Rodman cover.
That's awesome.
Okay, so this one's pretty cool. So this is not a Sports Illustrated. This is 1964. Yeah, so this is the 1964 AFL NFL championship game. So this is before the Super Bowl. This is the game program of the NFL championship game in 1964. That's Jim Brown, number 32, right there on the cover. It was I like game programs. I'm really getting into game programs more and more, especially, Super Bowl programs and World Series programs. Unfortunately, most game programs over history, and you can see this, they don't feature or prominently feature an athlete on the cover. Yep. It'll be a generic, like a caricature of a baseball player, or it'll be the World Series logo for that year or something like that. So these game programs that have a superstar athlete on the cover are pretty few and far between. But fortunately, the 1964 NFL championship game had one of the greatest running backs of all time in Jim Brown. And I was able to pick this one up. I did buy this raw and get this graded myself. And this 9.2 is the highest graded copy in the world. And this one I absolutely love and just think it's so cool.
That is cool. Yeah, you're exactly right. I've got some programs, but usually they don't feature the superstar athletes on the cover. So being 1964 and Jim Brown, that one's pretty sweet. I've never seen that one before.
Yeah, I've got a lot of World Series programs too, and it's most of the World Series programs do not have any athletes on the cover. A lot of times there are artist drawings and renderings of either the city or the stadium. I mean, it's still cool, but come on, when Jim Brown's on the cover, it's even cooler. Okay, this one, I don't know that anybody thinks that this is cool except for me. Again, being a Chicago guy, Blackhawks. This is not Stan Mikita's first cover. This is Stan Mikita's second cover. I just think this one looks cool. I've got his first cover too in 9.0. I just think that this is just a cooler looking cover. I have this soft spot in my collecting heart for vintage hockey. I just think I think hockey in the 50s and 60s was crazy. No helmets and guys with no teeth and cuts all over their face and stuff. I just think that was just badass. So this is from 1967. This is a dark era Sports Illustrated, Stan Mikita's second cover at 9.2. And I just loved how they got the three Blackhawks players right there going down the line, sitting on the bench. And that's kind of a fun one.
I love the look on those vintage hockey covers.
Yeah, they look cool. And I'm not a big hockey guy, but vintage hockey I think is cool. Okay, this is my last one. And again, back to my Chicago stuff. Sorry, that's just who I am as a collector. This is Gale Sayers. Gale Sayers' first Sports Illustrated cover from 1966. It's graded at 9.6. If Brad, I know Bradley, I know how how I feel about 9.6s. For those of you that haven't watched my video, I hate 9.6s because they're so close to a 9.8. And even though this is Gale Sayers and the Chicago Bears and its first cover, and it's almost 60 years old, and it's a 9.6, that's still painful to me because you know what? And here's the problem with it: I can't find the flaw. So and of course, there's no grader notes on it, but I mean, there's no spine ticks, there's no color breaks along the spine, the corners are crisp, there's no color rubbing on it. It's a fairly easy grade because there's lots of white on the back cover, so there's no problems there. I've looked at this issue for hours, and I can't find the flaw in it. So I still love it. It's still the highest graded copy. There's only 9.6 in the world. But man, this one just keeps eating away at me because I don't know why it's not a 9.8. But Gale Sayers' first cover from 66. That's a good one.
No, that's an incredible grade for any vintage, and especially a first cover of a Hall of Famer legend. I know how you feel about 9.6s. I was going to say you've got to at least feel good about that 9.6, but I understand your frustration if you can't even find a flaw and they didn't leave graders notes. That's definitely infuriating.
That's it. Yeah. So I mean, for example, I've got Yogi Berra's first cover from 1955, also at 9.6. Now that's a pop 1 of 2, none higher, but I can see the flaw in that one. There's the tiniest little color break right by one of the staples on the cover. Very thin, probably a 1/8 of an inch or a 1/16 of an inch long. Okay, I get it. That's why I got my 9.6. That Sayers is painful because I just can't find it, and I've looked at it for spent way too long looking at that one, looking for the flaw.
Still awesome though.
Still awesome. But man, it grinds at me. But
yeah.
So
all right, Jim, do you have anything else that you want to say or talk about before we head out of here?
I guess the only thing I'll leave you on is I think what I like one of the things I like most about this hobby are the people that are in it. What we've got right now, and I hope it stays this way for as long as possible, is we've got a lot of people that are really, collectors first, that have a lot of passion for this and have really kind of set egos aside and just want to see the hobby grow and just want to expose it to other people. And Bradley, that's why, I think what you're doing on your YouTube channel is awesome, because I think you reflect a lot of those values too. And I know that's something I intentionally do. Look, I'm trying to be as authentic as possible. I hate people that overhype stuff. You see the pump and dump guys all the time in sports cards and comics and crypto and stocks and all that sort of stuff. I would what's really enjoyable about this hobby right now is that everybody, or the vast majority, are really authentic. Everybody seems to be really good people. And I see a lot of people that are just helping each other out. There's a lot of great sharing of information, and a lot of cheerleading when other people do good. I think you see some people, in other collectibles, when they're like, why'd that guy get that? I wanted that, Mike Trout 10 or whatever, and that sort of stuff. I just don't see that. And I think that's so much fun in this hobby that, we're kind of all cheering for each other. And cheering for each other to get those high grades and find those issues that they're looking for and get them to add to their collection. And so if you're new to this, if you've just stumbled across Bradley's channel and you're like, what the heck is all this about? It really has been a great community so far. I would encourage people, Bradley, you're part of it, join our Facebook group, CGC Sports Illustrated. There's a lot of good sharing there. And I encourage people to reach out to me. I so far am able to respond to every single DM I get sent. And I spend a good chunk of my day responding to text messages and emails and social media DMs. So I haven't reached the threshold to where I can't manage responding to everyone yet. So while I'm there, please, you guys, if you got questions, you want to learn more about this hobby, shoot us a message, shoot us a DM, shoot me an email, leave a comment on my YouTube and that sort of stuff. I really enjoy helping people get into this hobby. A couple of hours ago, I had a 45-minute conversation with a brand new collector who stumbled across my YouTube channel and reached out to me on Instagram. And we just scheduled a call and talked. And he peppered me with questions for like 45 minutes, and I was happy to answer them. And he was really appreciative of the time and the knowledge that I shared with him. And I think there's a lot of other hobbies and things out there where that's not the case. So I'm glad that it's the case. I'm glad to always help people and kind of bring you along in the hobby and give you my opinion for whatever it's worth. And I encourage everybody to do that.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll echo that Facebook group is an awesome resource. It's called CGC Sports Illustrated. So if you're watching this and you haven't joined, join that Facebook group. A lot of good discussion, a lot of good information, and people sharing slabs. And it's just a really, really cool group to be a part of. Also, Jim, I hope you don't mind me saying this. I didn't even tell you, I didn't give you a heads up, but I'm just going to give you a shout out. Jim has a pressing service also. If you're going to send any issues in to get graded, highly recommend, if you want the best grade possible, that you get your issue pressed. And that can kind of be a new journey for new collectors, but Jim will press issues. He's got a service, and everyone talks very highly of how it's the best around. So Jim, do you have any information you can give for how people can utilize your pressing service?
Yeah. So I have a pressing service. I'm not going to get into what pressing is. If you're new to this, watch our YouTube channels and you can get that information there. But yeah, I press a ton of issues for other collectors. I'm looking over at the shelves in my office here where I've got my presses and stuff, and I probably got at least 50, maybe 100 issues that I'm pressing for other collectors. I am, as of recently, a certified authorized dealer at CGC. So if you don't have a CGC account, I can press your issues for you and submit them under my dealer account. If you want some more information about that, just find me on social media or drop me a comment on my YouTube channel. I got the same username on every single platform. It's CGC Sports Illustrated. I'll be happy to send you all the information about my pressing service and the cost and what the process looks like and all that stuff. And appreciate that, Bradley. Thank you for bringing that up.
Awesome. All right. Well, Jim, thanks again for being my first guest. Really appreciate it. You are the man. Anyone watching, comment, let me know what you think about this guest episode. I want to have more guests in the future. Let me know what you'd like to see, what you'd like to hear about. And I always appreciate likes and subscribes. Please do the same on Jim's channel, CGC Sports Illustrated. And thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time.